What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. I'm back with another quick spoiler-free review. I just had to get my thoughts out there after finishing We Men of Ash and Shadow by HL Tinsley, audiobook narrated by RJ Bayley. Before I continue, thank you everyone for listening on Spotify and Google Podcasts. We very much appreciate your support. And if you're watching on YouTube, please continue to support the channel by hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below and leave a comment with how you think we're doing or what you'd like to see us discuss on the show. Let us know what you think of these quick reviews. If you guys like them, I'll continue to do my brief spoiler-free reviews, and then Gabe will, of course, join me for the full spoilers podcast discussion episodes. And he'll probably do these ones too eventually. He's just been a little busy and under the weather lately, and I've read some of these books and he hasn't yet, but I had to talk about him. Also, feel free to follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy or look up the Fantasy Files podcast to keep up with our content over there. All right, without further ado, let's talk about We Men of Ash and Shadow. So I literally picked this book up on the spot. I saw it advertised by the author on Twitter, and something about it really caught my attention. The cover is absolutely beautiful. It was advertised as grimdark. I liked the time period it's set in, known as, I think, gas lamp fantasy, which really made me think of the video game Dishonored, which is one of my most favorite games of all time. We even talk about it in our Loch Lamora episode. But right away, I went and looked up the description of the book, which I'll talk about in a minute. And that really captivated me. But then, as usual, I went and looked at the reviews. I was blown away. Review after review was so positive, like 5-star reviews all across the board. I was very hard pressed to find one negative one. The only thing I found that was even remotely close to a negative review was a 3-star review, which is fine. And they really didn't have anything overtly negative to say about it. They said they enjoyed it and are excited to read the next one. So like, why the 3 stars? Anyways, I literally paused my TBR list right then and there, and I started the audiobook the next night after buying it on the spot, and was up until like 2 a.m. listening to this thing because I just couldn't stop listening to it. So before I get too far on this train of thought, let me tell you what the book is about. So it's set in this city where the worst of the world lives. Think Escape from New York, but in the Victorian era or maybe the very early 1900s. The city is near total collapse with multiple criminal overlords governing parts of the city, all fighting for control. We see some seriously destitute and depraved people living in this city just in the first chapter or so alone, not to mention all the things that happen later on. In the first chapter, there's a line where the narrator is talking about a bar, saying that there were 4 girls who worked there with only 6 legs between them. So yeah, that's the kind of city we're in. Anyway, our main protagonist is John Vanguard, who is basically a paid assassin for one of the crime bosses in this city, who kind of acts like a sheriff, I guess, and kills pretty much whoever his boss asks him to, except that he only kills the people that are truly criminal and depraved, like murderers and rapists and, like, I don't know, pedophiles, stuff like that. What ends up happening is 2 guards' bodies wind up on the river in the city, and he's sent to find out who killed them and to take them out. Along the way, he runs into another character that I really liked called Taryn, who wants to be his apprentice. And that's where the book really starts to take off. There is a little bit of a slowdown after he meets Taryn, but it's there for a reason. You need to get the info given to you during that time to understand what is happening when the story really picks up the pace again later. And it really reminded me of my experience with the Lies of Locke Lamora, how in the beginning you're really into it, and then there is a little bit of a slowdown, but it makes sense why that's there later. And you need that time where it slows down a little bit so you can get all the info that you need to get for when the pace picks up later. That's about all I can say without spoiling too much, but I will tell you about some of these characters. So Vanguard is kind of the Batman of this city. If Batman rented the bathroom of a brothel and slept in the tub. He's tough as nails, and people don't know whether to be afraid of him or revere him as some sort of like vigilante hero. He is driven further into his shady and dirty lifestyle because of the regret he carries with him from his time in the war, where he had to do less than honorable things to survive, or at least that's the way that he views it. He is very skilled at assassination and has this odd ability to go unnoticed by most people around him, especially the people he is hunting. And whether this is because of magic or something else is left unclear. He's friends with the madam of the brothel and her girls. They see him as kind of both a mascot and a guardian of sorts. Although he is very closed off and refuses to get too close to them like most people in this city. He distances himself from pretty much everyone, although he does have a couple close acquaintances who know him and knows that what he does is necessary to maintain some semblance of order in this forlorn city. The city of Dorsey is where we find ourselves throughout the novel, although it is mentioned that there are other cities and countries outside of its walls. Basically, there was some sort of societal collapse that happened where crime lords took over the city and walls were built to keep all of the undesirables inside. There are still aristocracy and I guess nobles of sorts and better parts of town, but the city is by no means a good city to live in or a safe one. No matter where you are inside of it, everyone is essentially a prisoner to some extent. It is mentioned, however, that people can get out of this city, but they have to jump through a ton of hoops that make it near impossible, or otherwise find a way out through bribes and stuff like that. The city is controlled by at least 2 or 3 crime lords, from what I understood, that mostly stay out of each other's way, but do cross each other from time to time. This is the kind of city where most people work through crime. And if you are like a pretty woman, you most likely will not live a good life in this city, like most grimdark stories. So what did I enjoy most about the book? I really enjoyed the very grimdark world and story. And right from the beginning, every character intrigued me as they were painted in varying shades of morally gray. Some of them with a small hint of gold at the center, even corroded as it was. And you guys know I love a good audiobook narrator, and RJ Bayley really steals the show. He is a fantastic voice actor with each character having their own distinct inflection to their voice. So I always knew exactly who was talking without the book needing to tell me. He breathes such life into each character that I could clearly picture them in my head and have a vivid understanding of the kind of person that they are. And actually, if you go to YouTube and look up the title of this book, you can find a video that I just watched that he made of him doing his thing, narrating the book live. And it's actually really, really cool. So go check that out if that's something you're interested in. The author, HL Tinsley, has an amazing way with words that fly off the pages with excellent prose. There were many quotable moments that I rewound to listen to at more than a handful of points in the story. She tells an excellent, well-rounded story with very little fat on the bone and with really great pacing that just hits certain story beats very, very well. And most of all, I enjoyed how completely captivated I was with the story right from the beginning. I could not stop listening to this book, and every time I had to put it down, I couldn't wait to be able to pick it up again. Right from the beginning, I was completely intrigued and wanted to know more about this world. It gave me really strong Lives of Locke Lamora vibes for some reason, besides the pacing. The characters are not at all as lighthearted and goofy as the Gentleman Bastards cast of characters, but the world and the way the story is written held my attention the same way. Like I said, both books also kind of pick up the pace around the same time as well. I definitely think if you're a fan of the Gentleman Bastards series, you should read this book, even though it is a little darker and more serious. The ending was also very satisfying and left me with just enough mystery for me to be itching for the next book. When I got to the end, it felt very complete, as like you could read this as a standalone novel in the same way that you can read the first Mistborn book as a standalone novel, but it leaves you with a desire to read the second one as soon as possible. In future books, I would really be excited to learn more about the city itself and exactly how it got to be the way that it is and where it's going from here. The book kind of tells you how it got that way, but I would love like a more in-depth look at it. I really want to see the world expanded upon to see what's outside the walls of Dorsey and just kind of get a glimpse of how the rest of the world operates, because it is hinted at and it leaves you really wanting to know just how the rest of the world is. Like, if this is the way that this city is, are there other ones out there that are just as terrible, or is this kind of like one city that contains all these criminals and stuff? I'd love to see more fantasy elements like magic and whatnot, because we don't really get a lot of magical or supernatural elements in this book, although there are a couple here and there. But also maybe that's not the vibe it's going for, and that's totally fine. All in all, I give this book a 9 out of 10 for a debut novel. I kind of reserve 10 out of 10s for books like Dresden Files, Night Angel, King Stark Tidings, etc. But this is about as close as anyone can get for me, and if the series keeps going the way that it is, it could easily be up there with the others for me. I was so shocked how much I liked this book. It might be my favorite new read of 2021. I also read Lies of Locke Lamora for the first time this year, and they're about neck and neck for me. I just enjoyed both of them so much in slightly different, but also slightly similar ways. I say go get this book right now and send it to the top of your TBR pile. It's a quick read, especially on audiobook. I think I did it in 2 to 3 days, and it's totally worth putting your other stuff to the side for a little while to enjoy it. All right, everyone. Well, that about wraps us up. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy, or just look up Fantasy Files Podcast. In case you didn't catch the last episode, Gabe was feeling a little sick last week, so we pushed out our King's Dark Tidings episode a little, and we'll upload that this upcoming weekend. And then it's on to Lightbringer, most likely with one or two of these short reviews in between, or maybe some other different videos. Check out our previous podcast episode interviewing indie author Jared Smith, where we give away some codes for his new book on Audible. Just hop over there and follow the instructions right before we go into the spoiler section of the video. Again, thank you all for watching or listening wherever you consume our content. And until next time, endure the darkness so that others may see the dawn. Okay, you want the dog? Here's the dog.